Welcome back, everyone, to Watcher of All Things, my podcast where I review TV shows, movies, and other media, and all things entertainment. My name is Kiki. This is episode 6. And this episode is our inaugural Watcher Watchback. So basically, instead of watching a new property this week or a new movie or new TV show, we're actually going to be going back and watching a previous installment of a franchise, a previous version of a franchise. So, for example, this week, I'm going to be talking Dune 1984 and the 2021 Part 1 by Denis Villeneuve, in anticipation for next week, Dune Part 2 coming out in IMAX, which I'm very much looking forward to. We'll get into a bit of how the critical reception is so far of it without any spoilers. I actually don't know anything about the movie, which is really great because I've never read the book. I'm actually planning to read the book after I watch part 2, just because I wanted to go in completely blind with as little detail as possible for part 2. So episode 6, it's going to be a great episode. We're going to talk, how do the two versions differ, the casts, and how they deal with the source material. I also have a couple articles that talk about the differences between the two versions, what my overall thoughts were. Now, I'm going to put a little disclaimer that for the 1984 one, I stopped the film with 45 minutes left. And that's because, and maybe this will be handy for other people to know, with 45 minutes left is when the second half of the book or part 2 of the modern Denis Villeneuve version starts. And like I said, I wanted to go in completely blind. So I watched up until kind of where Dune Part 1 takes place within the 1984 version. Maybe that's good for you to know as well if you don't want things spoiled before you watch Part 2, but you do want to watch the two different versions. I'm going to talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, and I'll be upfront with the 2021 version. There's not many things or anything I didn't like. It's actually one of my favorite movies, and probably my favorite sci-fi movie, to be honest. The 1984 version I had never seen, so it was really cool to watch because I've only heard things about it. But before we get into all of that, let's talk news. Also, I'm recording this on Tuesday. I usually record on Fridays, but I'm actually recording on Tuesday because I'm going to be away this weekend. But even with, the rest of the possible news that could come out in the rest of the week, just since Friday when I recorded episode 5, there's been so many new trailers and just so much news. It's insane. So let's get into it. First piece of news is we actually got some concept art from a pitched Batman Beyond animated film on Twitter, a bunch of different outlets, and actually the director and production designer themselves, they both tweeted. Basically, it's kind of like a Spider-Verse because these two, Patrick Harpin and Yuki Demers, both worked on Across the Spider-Verse, and they said that they had basically pitched a Batman Beyond movie to Warner Brothers and DC. Before it was a never, but now it's a maybe. So you can look up the photos yourselves. They look amazing, and the creator said before we pitched, they warned us there's absolutely no way we can do a Batman Beyond movie, but they loved our enthusiasm. We pitched the outline for the entire film, and what started as a never turned into a maybe. So I think there was 4 photos total or 3 photos total. They're very Spider-Verse animation style, which I absolutely love. I think the Spider-Verse movies look amazing, and when I was younger, I used to watch Batman Beyond all the time. I think I still have a few episodes on VHS, to be honest. I have a lot of VHS random tapes from when I was a kid because we didn't have satellite for a long time growing up. So we used to record things on TV with VHS that we would watch through the bunny ears and whatever it is, cable, I guess. And Batman Beyond was always, I remember Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. I probably watched that movie 1,000 times as a kid. So when I saw on Twitter that they were talking about a Batman Beyond animated film in the current day, because there's been tons of talks about doing, why wouldn't they do a live action? But I honestly think this is the type of movie that could thrive in an animated format like Spider-Verse has had. And just looking at these photos, they look incredible, and I think this is a world that it would look so good. It would just, the goofiness of the characters and the futuristicness, it's like Spider-Man 2099 in Spider-Verse, the world that he's from would also look amazing, and Batman Beyond is very much like that as well with Terry McGinnis. God, I love that show when I was a kid. It was so cool, especially Return of the Joker. But the TV show, I've gone back when I've grown up, and I've gone back and watched the TV show, and I gotta say, it's really good. It's like Batman the Animated Series. It is just, the animation's awesome, the stories are great, every episode is really good and unique. It doesn't feel like it's treading over old water. Yeah, I would recommend watching that to any casual Batman fans or casual animation TV show fans, because Batman Beyond was a fantastic show. I think it was on 2004 to 2008. I have no clue, but it was definitely more present when I was younger, obviously, and it's been just years of speculation of, would we ever get a Batman Beyond movie? But seeing this art, maybe. Well, you never know. Maybe when Spider-Verse, when the third one, if it ever comes out, if we ever get that, maybe someday we could get a Batman Beyond animated film. And in more, concrete news, we actually finally got the Borderlands trailer. I've never played. So Borderlands is a video game. I think it's a Telltale video game. I played the Telltale Batman games and a bit of the Guardians of the Galaxy game. I think I tried it briefly. So this is a live action adaptation with Kate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jack Black. What's her name that played young Ahsoka and young Gamora. And for I'll be honest, I have no connections to the Borderland, lore or the games. I've never played them. I like Telltale games, but I have no, connection to that property. So just watching the trailer, I don't know. Do Borderland fans love this? Do they hate it? If you've played Borderlands, get in touch with me or comment or, whatever. Get in touch with the show. You can email or comment if you're watching on YouTube. Is this good? I have no clue. I'll be honest. The trailer, it looks it looks like a cheap Guardians of the Galaxy. First of all, I'll say that. I think, is it Eli Roth making the film? I think so. And I think it didn't go through a huge script rewrite or something like that, but I'll be honest, I don't know, it's a lot of pee and poo jokes and not it looks like fun, but it doesn't look like astounding levels of wow, I cannot wait for that movie. It's more of a okay, yeah, I'll probably see that. It looks like it has decent, I don't know, character dynamics. It might have some funny jokes. I don't know what the dynamics are in the games. I mean, it looks like kind of a heist type. It's a heist movie. Kate Blanchett says at the start, there's a treasure at the middle of this planet or island or whatever. Whatever. It looks pretty basic. I think it comes out in summer. And I like the cast members. I'm fans of them all individually for the most part, I guess, but it just doesn't look like it's going to be. I find a lot of video game adaptation movies can be very hit or miss, or I don't know, does Dungeons and Dragons, that doesn't count as a video game movie, but it's a game movie. That was good. I like that. I don't know what other video game movies have actually been good recently. Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, it looks very colorful, looks very, different. It kind of looks like Mad Max, to be honest. And no shame, it doesn't look terrible. So that's no insult to Mad Max that, you look like the Borderlands movie. I actually think it looks pretty good, this movie. I wasn't cringing at the CGI. There was a lot of slow motion, which I wasn't a fan of. It looks like Jack Black's voice character is going to be either slightly annoying or extremely funny. And I feel like there will be no in between. So look out for that. There was also the announcement that Sam Mendes, who did, 1917, he did Skyfall. Skyfall. And I think he did Spectre as well. Anyways, he's going to be working on 4 separate biopic films about each member of the Beatles that are all going to release in theaters in 2027. So Mendes is going to direct them all, and they're going to be interconnected stories, one from each band member's point of view. And that was Deadline reporting that, and it's been picked up everywhere as well. So let me be clear. I am not at all a fan of the Beatles. I understand what they did for their time music wise. I think all of their music is extremely overhyped and overplayed to me, and I'm not attached to it at all. And I'm sure people say that about my favorite artists in 40-50 years or whatever. So I really don't care about this at all, but it's actually crazy that we're gonna get a shared cinematic universe about the Beatles, and I'm really interested in who's gonna play them all, because I don't know, Sam Mendes has made a lot of good movies, so these could be really good. We'll see what this looks like. I feel like this is a very unheard of thing that a serious director is doing 4 biopics separately that are all going to interconnect, and they're all going to release in 1 year. Are they all going to be 2-hour movies, or how is this going to work? But it just crazy. I feel like we know, the story of George, Paul, and John, but the Ringo movie is just going to be so... Dude, there's been so many good like memes on X or Twitter or whatever about like the Ringo movie or the Ringo plot, and it's like Mission Impossible Fallout when Ethan's jumping out of the plane. Just like just great memes in general. But yeah, that was a really random announcement this week that they're making 4 Beatles biopics with Sam Mendes directing. Yeah, we'll see where that goes and what that does for the industry in the future, because I do think the biopic genre is getting very stale, and it needs, I don't know, it needs a pump to the heart. Like I saw in theaters the Amy Winehouse biopic trailer, and I will be honest, it looked terrible. It looked absolutely bad. It looked very just TV movie. And then like Bohemian Rhapsody I actually really hated. Rocket Man I really liked. I'm pretty sure I've talked about biopics before. I'm not a fan of them in general. Yeah, when I talked about the Michael Jackson, like the first photo, and actually there's been another photo of his nephew or whoever that's playing him, and I'm just not a fan of biopics in general, but like this kind of approach is very different from what we've seen. So who knows? It could be good. It could be terrible. But in news that did get me excited, we finally got a X-Men 97 trailer. And speaking of cartoons that I watched as a kid and have VHSs of X-Men 97, I understand people's dislike of the new animation style because it does look different from the original cartoon, but like animation has evolved over the years, and the techniques of how they're animating the show have definitely really changed since the original series was running. So I'm so pumped for this. We're getting Magneto taking over for Professor X, and at the start it looks like Cyclops is leading the X-Men, but it's actually going to be Magneto because he inherits everything of Charles Xavier's. I loved this show when I was a kid. I still remember the Beast episode. I think it's the Beast episode when I was a kid when we first meet Beast in the show, or who am I thinking of? I can't remember. Nightcrawler. Oh my god, why was I blanking on his name? Nightcrawler. Yeah, he's iconic. I have no clue why I was blanking on that. I'm sorry. It's late at night when I'm recording this because I want to, I was excited to talk about these movies, and I finished 1984 Dune like today. So I was like, okay, I just want to record. I don't want to wait for the rest of the week. Yeah, I remember the Nightcrawler episode of the animated series, and oh man, it was like when I was a kid. Like the animated stuff I watched was Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Gargoyles, I believe was the show. Yeah, that's a thing. I watched that show. Sometimes you like remember things from your childhood and you can't remember if those actually happened or not. But anyways, this looks really great. The X-Men 97 trailer, I think this is going to be, it could be really fun. I mean it's a cartoon like series continuation of X-Men 97. So, I mean, it was a children's cartoon, but also like that show, even if you watch it back, it's still really good. So I hope the quality can remain the same, but we'll see. I think it comes out on March 20th. So I'm really excited. Maybe I'll talk about it on here. I'm really excited to watch it. I think a lot of people are excited, and like Marvel, what I read a story yesterday or maybe this morning that like Marvel is really starting to redirect themselves. They announced that they're changing the title of Kang Dynasty, and they're looking for a new villain. They're looking for people that can kind of lead the MCU forward, like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans did, stuff like that. So I don't know, these type of projects are getting me excited because like I'd rather see this than Thunderbolts. Although Thunderbolts now, they've announced that I think the showrunner of The Bear is punching up the script, and that's just crazy to me because The Bear is like hilarious but also extremely tense and dramatic. The fact that the showrunner of that is working on the Thunderbolts movie speaks to kind of the quality of the finishing touches that they're putting on that project, which apparently is filming next month in March. And for the final piece of news, because we really do have a lot to talk, I have a lot to say about Dune 1984 or 2021, and then I really want to go through those articles that talk about the differences. The final piece of news is they announced that they're actually going to do a new trilogy or a new Jurassic Park or Jurassic World movie, and Gareth Edwards, who I'm actually a big fan of, I liked his Godzilla. I really enjoyed The Creator, even if it wasn't the best movie ever. I enjoyed the world and the design and the sound elements and just the feel of that world and the feel of that movie. He did Rogue One, which I think is like one of the best Star Wars projects that aren't like Skywalker saga, really. He is apparently going to direct the new Jurassic World movie, which I think is really cool because like he did the 2014 Godzilla movie with what's his name, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Is Is that his name? So Gareth Edwards is going to be directing, and he did the 2014 Godzilla movie, which has, spawned on an entire universe of Kong versus Godzilla and all these movies. So if they're looking to rebuild the world of Jurassic World, I think he is a great director to do the inaugural film if they are looking to do something like the Godzilla movies. So we'll see when that comes out. I think the person who wrote the original Jurassic Park, whatever their name is, they're writing this one. So I think Gareth Edwards directing with his vision, and then the person who wrote the original, that could be an interesting combo, because I really wasn't a fan of the Jurassic World movies, but I love the first Jurassic Park movie. I think it's, Spielberg just nailing it. So we will see where that goes. All right, that's enough of the news. There's only so much I can cover and talk about, because it just feels like every day there's 10 massive stories that break and I could talk about, because they're so, there's just so much stuff happening, especially with all like the repercussions and stuff after the strike. I mean, Mickey 17 just got a new release date, and it's January next year, and it's either a really good thing or a really bad thing. And I don't know, it's probably because the movie is not good if it's going to January, but it might be the Lunar New Year. Who knows? Let's talk Dune 1984. I'm gonna do spoilers just because both of these movies have already been released. And when I say spoilers, I mean these are things that happen in the 2021 version. It's in part 1. Okay? That's in Dune Part 1, 2021. Everything that happens in that movie I'm going to talk about, and Dune 1984 up until 45 minutes left, whereas like the equivalent of Dune Part 1. So spoilers, if you haven't seen most of Dune 1984, if you haven't read the book, if you haven't seen Dune 2021, this is not the episode for you. So Dune 1984, David Lynch directing, screenplay as well. It's distributed by Universal Pictures. It's adapted from the book, of course. It came out in December 14th of 1984. It had a budget of $45 million US, which isn't insane. It has a Rotten Tomato score of 37%, Metacritic 41%. The cast is very good. I mean, Kyle MacLachlan, surprise, surprise, who always works with David Lynch, plays Paul Atreides. Francesca Annis is Lady Jessica. Patrick Stewart is Gurney. Cian Young, Cian Young, I believe is how you say her name. She's also in Blade Runner. She plays Chani. Sting is Fade Rotha. Everett McGill is Stilgar. Dr. Yun is Dean Stockwell. And Jurgen Prochnow is Duke Leto Atreides. Yeah, that's all the cast I want to say. The Herald of the Change, Lieutenant Kynes is Max von Sydow. I don't want to spoil things by saying character names, because if people don't know a character that shows up in Dune Part 2 or the second half of Dune that like I know, but I don't know what happens with them, so it's not really a spoil. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about it. But anyways, here's a synopsis for Dune 1984. It's not called Dune 1984, it's just called Dune. It's not Part 1, not blah, blah, blah. It's just Dune. In the year 10,191, a spice called melange is the most valuable substance known in the universe, and its only source is the desert planet Arrakis. A royal decree awards Arrakis to Duke Leto Atreides and ousts his bitter enemies, the Harkonnens. However, when the Harkonnens violently seize back their fiefdom, it is up to Paul, Leto's son, to lead the Fremen, the natives of Arrakis, in a battle for control of the planet and its spices, based on the Frank Herbert's epic novel. So, initial thoughts. Design-wise, similar to Villeneuve, very cool, and bringing the vision of the book to life. However, both movies are slow pace, slow burns. But for me, the Dune 1984 slow burn is not worth it, because it never comes together. It feels very rushed. It's slow pace, but it feels very chopped, of like just picking things from the book, and like the scenes don't really feel, they don't flow well together like the 2021 version, because if you don't know, Dune is a very large book. It's very dense. It has a lot of lore and a lot of people in it, and it's a massive story. And I think David Lynch, it's a great design of the world. Everyone looks amazing. It's a really great cast. I enjoy. Patrick Stewart as Gurney was surprising to me. I was like, oh my god. Kyle MacLachlan as Paul Atreides, he looks a little too old to be like a young Duke, to be honest. I don't know how old he was when they filmed this, but like I think Timothée Chalamet fits a young Duke that's, having to fulfill his duties and his fate, versus Kyle MacLachlan. If I had to, I feel like it's not even fair to compare the two, because they're just like they're such different movies. And probably Dune Part 1, the 2021 version, had such a bigger budget, and like movies have evolved so much since the 80s. I don't want to be harsh on the 1984 one, but like for me, it was there was parts I liked, but overall it just doesn't really work and it falls short. It feels very half-souled, and it feels like it's just touching on things in the book. Like, I think they put all of their effort into design, but story-wise, it's a very poor adaptation of the book itself, whereas the 2021 version feels like it's paying justice and building on things within the book, and that's because it has the benefit of being a part one and knowing it's going to have a second movie, so it can take its time. So, okay, I'm going to stick to Dune 1984 now. Yeah, very slow pace, but great cast. I think the designs look amazing. The still suits look very cheap, but like in a good way. It's simple. They look simple, cheap. They look like something the Fremen would have on Arrakis, and that would be going through the desert. I think the ornithopters don't look good. I don't like how boxy and like they just don't look very buggish. Or I think the 2021 design of them is much more interesting. I think these just look like, I don't know, especially the insides. They have like weird leather walls and stuff that look like the back of a chair, which I'm just not really a big fan of. I think character wise, all the designs of the characters are very cool and look very like steampunk kind of and disgusting. But I think like set wise and world wise, I don't really like the designs that much, or I don't know, just how they look on screen. I mean, in the book you can imagine them however you want, obviously, but on screen I just think I don't know, there's something not as flashy or cool about some of the things in this world. I think like it doesn't do justice to the scale of the world. It looks like just a really small set or a film lot that they're on. It doesn't have scale. It doesn't have like world building, grand taking over a planet. This is a space opera. It needs to feel big. It doesn't feel big to me, this movie. It feels like, people shuffling around on a set and playing make-believe. Yeah, a little too robotic, I'd say, of like the ornithopters. The acting, it's a little over the top and goofy. I mean, it's of its time. It's 1980s. If you go back and watch Star Wars, I mean, some of, the acting is very of its time, but because those movies just work so well, they're still really enjoyed. Whereas I think like the acting kind of bothers you a little for being goofy and feels very like TV adaptation of the book. And that's because like I feel like the performances can't have any nuance when they're in this kind of choppy and like roller coaster movie where it feels like every character's emotions are just like changing so much and so rapidly. There's no time to breathe. There's no nothing. It just feels like we're kind of just like hitting the main parts of the book and just cutting out so many things that happen in the background to all these people. I really don't like the inner monologues that are in this. I think like show us, don't tell us everything that they're thinking. They can, perform with body language. They can show us by acting. We don't need to be told directly to the audience. That's just one thing that really bothered me is like every time something was, dramatic was about to happen, one of the characters, you hear their inner monologue just explaining that it's happening. It's like, I realize I'm watching, or it's like not obvious and they tell you. It's like, well, why didn't you like act to show me? Don't just tell me. Show me through action. And I mean, Paul's visions are like scary, but they're kind of funny. I mean, the movie opens with a floating head, like it's, Kal-El's dad in Superman, the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. It's just like, it was so goofy compared to the opening of 2021. The floating head just doesn't work for me. It's just, I mean, in like the Lord of the Rings, they do floating heads or whatever, and I think that looks goofy as hell. And in this movie, I just think it was like comedic when I saw a floating head at the start of Chani. So I didn't enjoy that. Okay, I feel like I'm dragging on this movie a bit. It's a 1984 David Lynch Dune movie. Like, what are you expecting? It's gonna be weird. I think that like the script doesn't work itself, but I want to get into some stuff I do like about it. Like I said, the design looks like amazing and everything. Other than the ornithopters, I'm not a huge thing of the shields that they have, like when they're fighting and around the city. I really don't like. It looks like Minecraft characters all fighting each other. The characterization of the Baron is, I think it's just too goofy in this movie. He doesn't feel evil. He just feels like a clown. And not like in a scary like Joker, like he's insane way. He just feels like a circus freak that's like gotten loose. I think like the gadgets are really cool. You have the like the Thumper in the 1984 version has a faster pace than the 2021 version, and I still really like it. It's like a skinnier design, and it looks really cool. Like I said, the suits still look really good in this, and like the blue eye effects are like kind of goofy, but everybody still like kind of looks good in this. Even the orange hair on like Sting and the Baron and all of them, the 2021 version, just when it's a different adaptation, and I think the adaptation of most of the characters in this one are also very, very interesting, and I like the difference in the adaptations, that one can be a little more steampunk, circus clowny, and the other one is like much more gritty sci-fi, hardcore, serious film. Yeah, for the most part, a lot of the guns and stuff like look cool, but when they're shooting each other and stuff, there's no bullets or any like lasers or anything, and it's kind of funny. It just looks like they're all playing like laser tag or whatever when you just have your vest light up when you get shot. So that was a little goofy. I think like Kyle MacLachlan's performance, although he's older, for the most part, I think he's actually pretty good as Paul Atreides. Like he plays a very like a conflicted duke that's battling between free will and fate, which is what Dune is all about, free will versus fate. These movies and the books are all about the mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. And like the mystery of his life being free will versus fate, and him having to fight between these two worlds of like the Bene Gesserit, setting his path versus him going in the opposite direction and writing his own story. I think Kyle MacLachlan does a fine job. He does a fine job conveying a torn young duke, even though he looks a little older compared to Timothée Chalamet. I still think he does he still does a decent job at conveying the emotions for the most part. I think like to me, this movie feels much more like a Shakespeare play or a Shakespeare story. Like it's very overacted and melodramatic, but like at times it works. It feels like almost a Shakespeare sci-fi in some ways, which I actually was really enjoying. Like I think the start of the movie was odd, but for the most part I was actually very intrigued by what was happening. It was just the rhythms were the rhythm of the story was kind of taking me out of it a lot and was really hard to keep up with, because I saw the 2021 version before this, and so I know what the story beats should be, or what the first half of the book, like how the beats should go, even though needless to say there's tons of stuff cut out and it's a different adaptation. How the story is going, so kind of what to expect, and it just felt like the pacing and the emotions and the direction of the story was just all over the place. It just felt like we were just jumping at light speed. Like it felt like the start was so slow, and then all of a sudden we're on Arrakis and the invasion happens with I was just like I felt my head spinning, and so I was like, okay, I can't keep up with the story and this is confusing me, but at least I'm enjoying for the most part the designs, other than like a few things being like, well, that's clearly just like a broken off piece of a mic stand or something that he's speaking into. That's supposed to be a futuristic, Dune mic within the ornithopter. What else can I say? I'm excited to watch the rest of it after I watch part 2 and see how they wrap up like the second half of the book, because there's 46 minutes left, and the first, hour and a half, hour 45 minutes was all about part 1. So I feel like there's going to be a huge rush, and I only know there's a massive time jump where Paul's training with the Fremen, with Lady Jessica. So I don't know if so far the pacing has been disastrous. So I'm going to assume the pacing will be even worse in the last 45 minutes, because they have to squeeze so much in of the second half of the book. Also, Lady Jessica is kind of just like a pawn in the story and doesn't really have a lot of strength to her or any nuance. I'd say a lot of these characters, I don't know, just something about how the story is paced. It doesn't give them a chance for the actors or the performers to bring nuance to the role, because we can't let them breathe or see them grow. It's just all of a sudden a switch, and it just feels like an unbelievable jump in emotion, and you can't buy into it, which I think is just a problem with this variation of what they chose to cut, and also the fact that he's squeezing the entire book into the movie and didn't want to do multiples. So, and it's a $45 million production, so you only have so much stuff you can do. So where I left off in that version is where part 1 leaves off, that Paul and Lady Jessica find the Fremen in the desert, and they're being welcomed into their community, and they're going to start training with them to fight back against the Emperor and the Harkonnens. Or the Harkonnens. Now let's talk Dune 2021, a film that I was lucky enough to see in IMAX last week. Since I saw it in 2021 has been one of my favorite movies. It's in my 4 favorites on Letterboxd, and this movie is just mesmerizing. And just today, what do you call it, like the social media embargo, it lifted on Dune Part 2, and so far I think right now it's at 97% on Rotten Tomato, 80 on Metacritic. So it's Part 2 is doing very well critically, so I'm very excited to see it. People saying it's better than the first one. It's one of the best sci-fi movies ever. It's like Lord of the Rings, which I'm not a big fan of Lord of the Rings, but it like scale wise and just battle wise, it feels like Lord of the Rings, maybe the Lord of the Rings of our time. But to me, this, Part 1 and Part 2 feel like the Star Wars of our time. When those came out, it blew people's minds, and I feel like Part 1 and Part 2 are melting people's faces. So okay, Dune 2021, let's get into the cast. This has Zendaya as Chani, Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides, Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica, Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto Atreides, Jason Momoa is Duncan Idaho, who's much more involved in this adaptation. Stellan Skarsgård plays the Baron, Josh Brolin is Gurney, Dave Bautista is Glosso, Javier Bardem is Stilgar. They actually gender swapped Lieutenant Keynes for what's her name, Sharon Duncan Brewster, who's really good. Just a stacked cast. The cast is insane, and the talent of both casts is something to be impressed by. But the nuanced acting and the performances in this one, and the script and the pacing, it just leads to such great world building, great storytelling. I love this movie to bits. This is a 5-star for me every time I watch it. I will watch this every day. I don't care. Like I love this movie so much, and to me it is the far better movie. Although as much as I enjoyed Dune 1984 partly, I absolutely adore Dune 2021. I mean, the soundtrack, Hans Zimmer, I think he is my favorite composer. I love John Williams, but I think Hans Zimmer is, he's done, other than Ludwig Göransson, he's done my favorite soundtracks, and Michael Giacchino. Hans Zimmer just absolutely nails it with this. I mean, the bagpipe march when they're getting off the ship onto Arrakis and entering Arrakeen, crazy. And just the entire script, or the entire score complements the script so much and helps with the world building, because it's just such a good backdrop. As cool as the Toto soundtrack is for Dune 1984, which I actually really like, I think the Hans Zimmer score is just mesmerizing. And I mean, the sound design in general of the weapons, the voice, oh my god, everything. Just this movie really is a masterpiece to me. I think the costumes are so awesome. I mean, the Fremen still suits look even better in this one to me. They don't look so bulky on the face with the nose plug. I think Lady Jessica's clothes and Paul's clothes and just all the House Atreides clothes are so cool, and the costumes of all of the Harkonnens it's so awesome. It's just so hardcore. And Denis Villeneuve, he's going to be one of the best filmmakers ever in the film industry. He will be remembered as, he will be infamous for the rest of his life for the work he's done on he's already done so many great films. I think Timothée Chalamet plays a much better Paul. I think just looking younger really helps him, because it kind of shows the shock of his father's death, really speaks to kind of how innocent and young this man is, and how his life is being kind of pulled along through the fate of the Bene Gesserits, and the Emperor, and everybody's planning what is to happen of Paul Atreides and House Atreides, and he's so young, and he's finding his way, and it's him battling between fate and free will. And I just think Timothée Chalamet, he brings so much power, and he just within the film itself grows so much as Paul Atreides, and I just commend him so much for the work he does in this film, and his fighting, and his the physicality he brings to it of a young fighter, and he's so just urgent, and he's arrogant at times, but he's still very scared, you can see throughout the movie, and he does rely on his parents for guidance, and he's a younger brother to Duncan. And I think that relationship, I'm not sure how much Duncan is in the book, and he's not really in the first or 1984 version at all that much. He has, I think, 2 scenes, but the work between Jason Momoa and Timothée Chalamet as Paul and Duncan is so great. You really do see the eagerness of young Paul Atreides and him wanting to prove himself as the next Duke, but then also Duncan, he really does show himself as a warrior. And I think every scene that Jason Momoa has in the 2021 Dune. Oh my god, it phenomenal. Like some of the best like action and fighting, and he's just such a powerhouse warrior. He's amazing. I love him in this movie. The cinematography, I mean, Greg Fraser, he did another one of my favorite movies, The Batman. It knocks it out of the park. This movie looks phenomenal. This looks like the look of the world. His cinematography just helps accentuate the scale of this film, and how the world looks, how the spice reflects in the air, and the shine of the blue eyes from the Fremen and Paul. It's God, I love this movie, and I love Greg Fraser's work. I mean, he did Rogue One. He's just done some great stuff. He did like The Creator, and I love Greg Fraser. He does such phenomenal work. I hope he comes back for the Batman Part 2. Baron Harkonnen, much better. Stellan Skarsgård compared to the Baron of Dune 1984, you really do fear him in this film. He does feel like a terrifying leader of another house or another, dynasty that is coming for revenge and is coming for blood. And he just takes no prisoners in this movie. And he plays such a gross, sloppy, disgusting pig of a person. But he's a beast. And I think Stellan Skarsgård, like, what a fantastic pick for the Baron. I can't wait to see him in Part 2, what he does. And like the Bene Gesserit seem much more dark and witch-like, and they really do kind of evoke fear in you, especially when Paul does that, box pain test thing. That's a terrifying sequence where he proves his power, and you can see the fear in the Bene Gesserit. I think, in this one, in Dune 1984, the Bene Gesserit feel much more like casual, and they can just like be in the room, and they're not like the sacred, witch, whatever people. Whereas in the 2021 version, like I feel like every time the Bene Gesserit are there, like some shit's gonna go down. Like they have the voice and whatever, they have all these powers and stuff, and like Paul he's the product of the House Atreides, but also the Bene Gesserit, and he like brings those two worlds together so well through Timothée Chalamet in this film. Zendaya as Chani, she's barely in the movie, but like what she is in is really cool. I mean, you can't really say, I mean, she's not bad in this, but you can't say like, oh, she's giving a life-changing performance. But I think she's like a really good Chani, and I'm really excited for her in Part 2 to see her actually get to play the character. But what she does is very limited in this movie, but she's great at what she does. And like the visions of her are just so well done in this movie. Like they do feel much more hallucination dreams and like visions. They feel like she is something that he wants, and then also like the visions of things he's scared of or bad things that are going to happen or wars feel much more like terrors or dreams. But whereas the visions of her feel much more like hallucinations of love and obsession, I just think like the visions work really well in this movie of like warnings, and then we get to just how they're sprinkled throughout the film really help pace the film of, oh, we're getting visions of this, and then you like see something happen and it doesn't go that way or whatever. It's just, there's so many interesting visions in this film that just speak to kind of the mysticism and the magic of the spice and Paul's dreams and stuff like that. In the first one, they're kind of scary and funny, but like in this one, they just feel like wonder, and they just bring more curiosity out of you, and it just kind of drags you into the story even more. And like I said, the scale just feels like this is what Dune should feel like. It feels like this massive world that, is conquered, and there's spice, and it's fought over, and just the balance of the different groups, the Harkonnens, the Atreides, the Fremen, it's just the scale of everyone involved is so well balanced. I think that's what really works in this movie for me. And I know some people have issues with the pacing, and I could see why maybe in the third act some people have pacing issues, but I actually really enjoy the third act, and it makes you see the scale and the world building for the first 2/3, and then that final act feels much more intimate of Lady Jessica and Paul meeting the Fremen and the sandworm incident, and then Paul has to fight and to be accepted into the Fremen. And I actually really love the third act, and I think this film is, for me, in my opinion, this film is very well paced, and I think it does a great job of sucking you in. And every time I finish this movie, I could watch 10 more hours of this world, which at the end of the day, that's what you want from a movie. You don't want to stop watching it. I mean, the set pieces and the action, the invasion of Arrakeen by the Emperor's troops or whatever, and and the Harkonnens is just like, what a phenomenal action sequence. The worm looks, kind of flowery. It actually reminds, in 1984, the worm looks kind of flowery, reminds me of the sandworms in Star Wars, actually, whereas like the 2021 version feels much more unique. It's just different. Both are cool, but I just think the 2021 version is such an interesting, even though it looks like a butthole, it's such an interesting look for a sandworm, and just like the scale feels much more imposing on our characters as we watch them. And just all of the, the ornithopter sequence where the worms are approaching and they have to rescue all the workers. Just there's great action and set pieces to this. The sets feel much more real. It feels like they're truly on this planet and not just on a film set somewhere. It feels like they are truly lost in the desert and we are lost with them. And all the fights are just like, all the fight choreography is just amazing. This is like, it's not only a great drama and space opera, this is a great action movie. If you like action set pieces, this is a great movie to watch. I mean, it not only has huge like gunships and, fighting, it also has like a great hand-to-hand combat fight at the end of the movie with Paul fighting for his life. And, oh man, I could talk about this movie for days on end. I don't want to say a billion things. Needless to say, I enjoy the 2021 Dune Part 1 much more than 1984. I will give both credit that they're both a director's vision of how they read the book when they were a child or a young person, and they both really try to bring their visions come to life. One is much more smooth and landed a little more smoothly than the other, and I think Denis Villeneuve does a great job of picking what he wants to expand on and really focus on, and then leaving things as minor details, but giving just enough explanation that we're okay with it and we don't feel like we're being kind of cheated out of important information about the story, which it feels kind of half-hearted in David Lynch's version. It feels like we're missing important details, or like, oh, okay, this character really like had a change of heart. Why is that? Whereas the 2021 version just feels much better. Before I get into the differences, I'll read some Letterboxd reviews that I enjoyed about the two movies. So this one's Dune 1984. David Lynch holding up 3 identical headshots of Kyle MacLachlan. Now I wonder who will be playing the lead in my next movie. 3 stars. Another one, 2.5 stars. Felt like I showed up 2 hours before the final exam for a class I never attended and tried to skim through the entire textbook. I failed the exam, but at least the textbook had a bunch of cool pictures. Yeah, I mean, that just speaks to kind of how I felt about the movie as well. It feels like, oh, this is really cool to look at, but it feels like I'm missing a bunch of important information and like I'm kind of failing this. Okay, the final one for 1984, it's 4 stars. I'm just glad they still have pugs in the year 10,191. Yeah, it's so funny seeing on the invasion of Arakeen and there's a pug running through one of the scenes. It's just crazy. Okay, Dune Part 1. 3.5 stars. How are you going to birth the chosen one with unlimited, undiscovered power, destined to unite civilizations in the far reaches of the universe, and call him Paul? Yeah, it is a very odd, we have a guy named Duncan Idaho, like, very, very funny, but then you have like very interesting names like Duke Leto and stuff like that, like the Duke Leto Atreides, but then you have Paul Atreides. 5 stars. You're telling me Timothée Chalamet thinks he's special because he dreams of Zendaya? Bro, who's gonna tell him? Yeah, my thoughts exactly. I mean, these visions are common, my friend. And the final one for 2021. 5 stars for giving us a perfect floating fat ass Baron Harkonnen. I love watching him shove food into his fat head. Yeah, like I said, he just feels like a disgusting slob in this movie, and he's just so gross and yucky to look at, and it's so much fun. Okay, here we go. I have a Screen Rant article that says Dune, 12 biggest differences between the 2021 1984 versions. Number 12, Baron Harkonnen's look and demeanor. Yeah, I kind of talked about that like the look is much more boily and gross in the 1984 one, and the 2021 version is just like a much more pale kind of gross monster. And just, yeah, their demeanor is much different in the two. Like, he's a very clowny psycho in the first one, but in the 2021 version, he's just like kind of a scary, like he almost feels like a lab creation. Number 11, the Emperor isn't included. Of course, that's Christopher Walken in Part 2. He's going to be playing the Emperor. Villeneuve is saving that for Part 2. Number 10, the sandworms look different. Yeah, I mentioned that. The weirding way isn't in the 2021 version. So that's a Bene Gesserit technique. It's a form of movement that combines physical and psychological training, which was an aspect of the Bene Gesserit that Lynch depicted as sonic beam weapon called the weirding module. Yeah, that's not in the 2021 version. The 1984 version had a constant internal monologue. Yeah, I think I didn't really like that about it. It feels like it was just kind of explaining. It was over-explaining to us. Number 7, Lady Jessica is more prominent in 2021. Yeah, that's one part I really liked about Denis Villeneuve's version is like Lady Jessica just feels like such a powerful character, and we can't really like trust her in the film. I feel very like, I think she's pulling some stuff and like she's hiding things from Paul. So we'll see where she ends up in part 2. Number 6 is a spoiler kind of for the second half and part 2, but Fade Rotha and another character that I won't name are missing in 2021. Number 5, Dune 2021 only covers part of the novel. Yes, thank you, Screen Rant. Number 4, the Guild Navigators are gone in 2021. Yeah, at the start of the 1984 version, they have the Guild Navigators, and that's not in 2021. So when I was watching the 1984 version, I was like, who the hell are these like floating brain people that look like the ghost from Ghostbusters? That they're not in 2021. Number 3, the visuals are unique in each. And like they say, it's not just because of the eras, but like the aesthetics of the different directors are different in how they make their films. Number 2, the diversity of the cast. Yeah, I mean the Dune part, 1984 is just all white cast. It's only white people in that film pretty much. And 2021 has a very diverse cast that's really cool. I mean, you have Zendaya, you have the gender swapped and a woman of color playing the Herald of the Change. Dr. Yun is actually played by an Asian actor. And then number 1, Dune 2021 uses different languages. So Lynch avoided the multiple languages of the universe. Yeah, everybody's speaking the same language in Dune 1984, but I actually really love the like differentiation in all these different languages that we get in the Denis Villeneuve version. Okay, I have a BuzzFeed article as well. That's 27 differences. I'm just going to absolutely run through these. Number 1, Villeneuve got rid of one of my least favorite aspects of the original Dune, the internal monologue. Yeah, exactly. I hated that as well. It just felt like it was, just show us, don't tell us. And number 2, even though there's narration nowhere near as prominent in Villeneuve's movie, there's still an opening narration. Narration. Oh my god. Narration, not narration. But this time it's delivered by Zendaya's Chani instead of Princess Irulan. Oh, okay, interesting. So that wasn't Chani. I don't know why I said it was Chani in the 1984 version. It's the princess, the emperor's daughter that's delivering it in Dune 1984. In the 1984 version, the Atreides had a sweet little pug. There's no pug in 2021's Dune, but there's an adorable desert mice. Okay, let me just quickly read through the rest of these again, and if there's any. Yeah, the relationship of Paul with his parents in the 2021 version is like much closer, and there's like extra scenes that weren't in the original, which I really liked. Like it seems like he is very close to Oscar Isaac's Leto, which I very much enjoyed. Like he says, even if you don't want to be king, there's still like the one thing I need you to be, and that's my son. Yeah, okay, number 8. On the subject of Harkonnens, one change that really scrambled my brain was the fact that the movies pronounced the name differently. 1984, Harkonnen, and 2021, Harkonnen. So maybe this is different because I heard it first, but I personally prefer the 1984 pronunciation. I don't know. I don't really know if I prefer one. I mean, Harkonnen is how I was saying it. Harkonnen is how I sometimes say it. It's either is fine. And like, that's just like a matter of different adaptations because, if it's a text, there's no proper way to say it because it's not set in an audio medium. Yeah, the 2021 version really emphasizes the harsh conditions on Arrakis and how much the Atreides have to adapt when they get there. Yeah, that's one like really great thing about the 2021 version is like, you get a sense that they're going into a really dangerous situation and like, there's a reason people have tried to settle this place for years, and it's just like a really great just the safety precautions they have to take to be on the world it's just really really good. In the 1984 version, Jessica and Paul are immediately accepted by the Fremen, but in the 2021 version, Jessica and Paul are not immediately accepted by the Fremen, and Paul must fight a duel to the death before they are able to join them. So in the 84 version, they're not accepted, but there was a deleted scene where Paul fought and killed Jamis, just as he does in the 2021 version. In the 2021 version, Paul is resentful of the Bene Gesserit prophecy and even lashes out at Jessica because of it, which didn't happen in the 1984 movie. Yeah, that's one thing I really enjoyed, is like he's kind of pushing back against this fate that's being like attached to him. Yeah, I really enjoy the kind of the power difference of Paul pushing back against the Bene Gesserit, and you can see he's angry that like there's all these predestined plans for him. Yeah, that's just something that's a great dynamic, and like he's closer to his parents, and I think that's a great part of these movies. Of the Villeneuve one is that his parents actually his parents actually do mean something to him, and that's why he's heartbroken when his dad dies, but he also does care about his mom, even if she is kind of maybe not being truthful with him. Overall, I mean, the 1984 version has some really cool things about it, but I just don't think it comes together all that well. The 2021 version is one of my favorite movies. To me, it's like a perfect sci-fi of what I enjoy in a movie. It has great emotional connections. It has grand action, massive scale, phenomenal music, great visual effects and CGI. The 2021 version is just so far superior for me. I can't wait to watch part 2 because then I'm actually starting the book, which is arriving tomorrow. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty thick book from what I understand. So I'm going to try and like finish it maybe by, I don't know, summertime or by the end of summer, because I don't like have tons of time to read because I'm watching stuff all the time. So yeah, maybe when I do finish it, I'll talk about the book and like what I thought of it. But I think that just about does it for our first Watcher Watchback. Next week, Dune Part 2. I am so beyond excited. I am seeing it on Thursday, February 29th, the leap day, whatever you want to call it. I'm bringing in the leap day, and it's going to be so phenomenal. It has phenomenal reviews already, and I'm so excited to see it. So look forward to that. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. This is the 6th episode. I'm really having fun doing this every week. You can find this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Acast, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on a podcast player like Spotify, Amazon, Acast, or Apple, leave a rating, 5-star rating and a review. You can get in touch with the show by emailing me at watcherofallthings@gmail.com. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, can leave a like, you can subscribe, hit the notification bell. Why not leave a comment telling me, what did you think of the 2 different versions of Dune? Are you excited for Dune Part 2? What are you hoping to see? Once you do see it, come back and listen to this episode. Come back and listen to next week's episode about Dune Part 2 and tell me what you thought. Leave a rating, review, like, and subscribe. You can follow me on Letterboxd at KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will catch you in the next one.